First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning for the first of our information sessions on Trident United Way's Community Gardens Initiative. So we are recording this session for everybody. So we will keep a recording of this session and we will post it and share it out with everyone who has registered so that you can review this information after the fact. And we'll also be posting this session on our website for future reference. So if you miss anything or if someone wasn't available to attend, you always have the next session, which is next Friday. But we also will have a recording of this information for anyone who is interested. Just a few housekeeping items just before we begin. Just want to remind everyone to please make sure you stay muted during the presentation. If you have questions during the presentation, there is a chat box that I would encourage you to type your questions into. One of my colleagues, Naomi, who is our grants manager here at Trident United Way, is going to be monitoring that chat. And at the end of the presentation, we are going to have a slide set up for folks to ask questions. And so if they're in the chat, we can roll through those. And so that's how we'll be handling that. All right, so let us begin. So first and foremost, I just want to say, we're very excited at Trident United Way to be offering a community garden initiative to the community. And I'm trying to advance my slides. There it goes. We are excited to announce that we have been awarded a federal USDA grant to build community gardens in our community. So this is a big overview slide for folks. I'll be diving into the details later in the presentation for each of these things. But the purpose of this initiative is to improve food security in areas where access to fresh fruits and vegetables are low or unattainable. And our plan is to partner with 3 groups, one in each of the 3 counties that we serve, Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties, to help train, build, and sustain a community garden at their site for 2 years. Support is going to come from Trident United Way and our partners at Clemson Extension. That's the Clemson Cooperative Extension Agency. So this is just an overview slide with a bunch of information. Like I said, this is a 2-year commitment for folks, and we're going to be providing lots of support to help you if you are selected. So here is kind of the timeline of this initiative. So right now, we are kind of in the pre-phase of this initiative where we're identifying partners. Like I said, we're going to be identifying 3 sites. And we're going to, during this time between now and March of 2023, we will be making that selection, establishing kind of a community garden team, which I'll get into in just a minute. And we'll be selecting and identifying garden site coordinators at each of the 3 sites. And then, of course, before that first year begins, we will be having a big kickoff event. So starting in April of next year will really be kind of the big planning, training, garden build time frame. And that will last from April of next year all the way through March. But our target date for each of our groups to have their gardens built in that first year is October 1st of next year. And during that year, of course, there will be lots of support and supplies and training and things going on. But then we also will hopefully be able to conduct, some community work days, perhaps have some media days out at the sites so that we can, recognize those groups for accomplishing that build. And we're going to have community garden team meetings, which is a support group that will be recruiting and managing in the area to support each of those 3 gardens. And then in that second year, it's pretty primarily focused on kind of, expanding those gardens if it's needed, or if the community, deems it needed. And And then we're going to continue to kind of have, community work days out there, as well as, ongoing support from this community garden team, which we're putting together. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully it puts into kind of perspective the scope and the time frame of this initiative. Of course, we want the gardens that are built to continue on after those 2 years, but this opportunity does provide those 2 years of support. So what does that support look like? So on Trident United Ways, and we're going to be providing gardening supplies to each of the sites that are selected. And then we're also going to, we want to make sure we cover the gardening supplies and provide a small stipend for one coordinator per site. We don't want costs to be a barrier to applying for this opportunity. And we really do want to make sure we compensate folks who agree to lead this effort at each site, because it takes time and effort to coordinate this project with your community. We're also going to be recruiting, like I said, and convening a community garden team who's going to help provide both community voice and support from folks who are passionate, experienced, and dedicated to seeing the community garden succeed. So we know there's a lot of experience and wisdom in the gardening community here in the Tri-County. We want to lean on that as a resource for these 3 selected sites. And then, of course, Clemson Extension is an amazing partner who does some great work in the state of South Carolina. And they will be, helping to provide kind of education, training, and ongoing resource for all things gardening. Believe it or not, I am not a trained master gardener, but there are some great folks at Clemson Extension who are and provide this service to folks. And they have a whole curriculum for teaching community members what it takes to build and sustain a community garden. And they'll be available to help folks navigate kind of throughout the process. So in terms of supplies, I wanted to put this together. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is kind of the list of the most common supplies that a group may need to start their community garden. And so we'll work with each site that's selected to kind of purchase these supplies that are needed, and work with the garden site coordinator to make sure that they get delivered and set up. So like I said, this is not an exhaustive list, but you'll see lots of great things here, including not just the raised beds, but irrigation systems, compost bins, a shed to kind of help store it comes to the supplies and all the things that are needed to keep that garden going, fertilizer, soil, all that kind of great stuff. Some areas may want to have, big, community bulletin boards or ways that they can kind of coordinate and share with volunteers how the community garden will work. So we'll even, make sure that those are provided as well. So this is something that we'll work with each site to figure out. Obviously, every group will have different needs and will be in different situations depending on the land that they're considering using. But I just wanted to share this with folks as you get an idea for the kinds of support that we're going to be able to provide. So the requirements, baseline eligibility to be able to apply for this initiative is we really want to make sure, that the folks who apply have a site in mind, some land in mind, with space for at least 5 garden beds. So on, those beds generally are about 4 feet by 4 feet, but that may change based on the needs and the space provided by the group that's selected. But just take that into consideration as you're thinking about how much space you may need. We also want to make sure there's space for areas for folks who are working in that garden to kind of take breaks and kind of rest and have tables and things like that, because of course this is a community garden, right? So this is something that we want community members to be able to use. And of course, space for storage is important. That water source nearby is also really important too, right? So a lot of times I think we forget, that we need to make sure we have a water source for that irrigation system located somewhere near the site. And we can work, of course, Clemson Extension and other partners like the Community Garden Support Team can help folks identify those and figure out maybe creative ways to make that happen. And we also need to make sure we have, around 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. So we would obviously, we would encourage folks, who have a site that is completely in the shade 24 hours a day to reconsider kind of where they're at. But that's another piece that's important as well. So some things we'd like for folks to take into consideration, and you'll see some of these areas kind of reflected in some of the application questions. To think about the personnel and capacity of your group. Notice I'm saying group, not necessarily nonprofit or organization, because we do know that there are maybe some areas, some community groups who may want to apply for this that are not, officially under a nonprofit or an organization. So we want to just think about the personnel and capacity. What folks are available to volunteer to keep this garden going. And of course, with that personnel, we want to consider who would be named the garden site coordinator, and that person is going to have to commit to really helping represent the rest of the group. And plan and work with us to make that garden happen. And of course, volunteer accessibility is really important too, right? So, is the site, does it have a parking lot nearby or some parking capacity? Does it, is it walker, bike friendly? Also, we want to look at, sites that are community focused. So is it near, areas where we have community access, and is it near or by maybe a low income area where folks may have limited access to supermarkets or convenience stores to be able to get fresh fruits and vegetables, and also the willingness to kind of work or partner with other community members or community groups as needed to kind of ensure the sustainability and success of those gardens. And then also it's important to think about, if you have room to grow, like we said, in that second year, some of the conversations that we would like for our sites to have is, are we meeting the needs of our community? Do we need to grow? And maybe not necessarily in more garden beds, but in other offerings to community members as well. So those are some things just to take into consideration. That application timeline for folks that are interested in applying. So right now, of course, we're in that information period, right? And so we're going to have another information session on the 28th, which is next Friday. So if you know of anybody who may be interested in this, there's still a chance to attend another one of our information sessions. And we would encourage folks to do that. We're also going to have a web page with lots of great information and more than likely this recording of this information session on our website with an FAQ for folks. But we're going to be using SurveyMonkey for our application for this initiative, and that application is going to open up on November 1st. And we're also going to ensure that we provide folks with a PDF of those application questions so that they can kind of review those and think about their answers before signing in the SurveyMonkey and filling that application out. And then there will be an application review period that happens in December and January. We're going to put together kind of a community of community members to review those applications. And we also plan on doing some site visits. We want to, see the space that is, potentially going to be used for the community garden and take some photos and bring that information back, to that committee as we make that selection. And then there will be an awards notification that happens sometime in February once the selected sites, the sites are selected. And those folks who are selected will be notified, of course, via email and phone. If your site's not selected, we're going to send you an email and say, we really appreciate you applying. Unfortunately, you were not selected at this time, but we would want to encourage folks to maybe participate as part of the community garden team, even if you are not selected for the Community Garden Award. And then just as, that's all the application process, but then, it rolls directly into kind of that garden planning and building in the spring and summer of next year, where we work with folks to kind of, train and plan and and then start that garden process. But of course, we would want to select that garden site coordinator at that time as well. So that is all the information that we have on the initiative. That we're if anybody has any questions about any of the issues that we talked about today or any of the pieces that we talked about, I don't see anything in the chat, but at this time I'm going to pause and see if there's anybody who's on the call today who has any questions that we might be able to answer. All right. Well, hearing none, I want to once again, thank everybody for attending today. We appreciate your time. Here's my contact information. I'm Joey Current, Health Programs Manager here at Trident United Way. If you have any questions about this initiative, please feel free to shoot me an email or call me in my office and we can talk about it. Once again, thank you for your time today, and let us know if you have any further questions. Thank you so much, and I will see you all later. Thank you.